Welcome to Let's Have a Talk with Keith. Today, I'm going to continue this dialogue conversation, and we're going to talk about hijacking. And a lot of people are like, Keith, what is hijacking? I'm like, look, hijacking a message. You may have something very important to say, but it slips right out of your hands and it becomes the tool of something or someone that you really did not expect. But at the same time, when you don't safeguard this message, it is ripe to be overtaken. And when that message becomes overtaken, then you lose that room for dialogue. You lose that room for constructive conversation because now everyone's standing on their wall. Even though your message could be great, it's going to ruin the effect that you could have. And so when we talk about, hijacking a message and dialogue, we often ask, what can we learn from each other? What can we learn about ourselves? What can we learn about an issue? What can we do to better understand an issue? And how do we make sure that whatever we're discussing stays in a positive direction? And then, most importantly, is how do we collectively come together to try to do something? Well, I want you to think about anything that you might have heard or something that you might wanted to share. And you tell someone, and that person blurts it out. Well, as soon as that person blurts it out, the cat's out the bag. You are no longer in control of your message. And so your message fails, or your message may not have the right effect that it wanted to have initially because it has been superseded by someone else delivering this message on your behalf, whether you intended it or not. But now you must deal with those repercussions. And so, what we don't really understand sometimes in dialogue is that words have consequences. We often talk about actions have consequences. So do words. Words cut deeper than anything that we could imagine. Sometimes those words cut deep into our soul, and they cut so deep into us that sometimes it is irreparable. It is soul devouring. It is psychologically crushing. It can be socially demeaning. But those are the words that we choose. And so we often have to make sure that the words that we choose are not offensive in nature. We have to make sure that the words we choose are not meant to just always break down or deconstruct. There is something called constructive criticism. You cannot like something, but express it in a way, not so that the person is offended by your words, but they really can see that you care about making them better. And I think that is the essence that we miss in our society today. We're no longer about making each other better. We're about using our words to tear people apart. And we've done a good job, with doing it. I'll throw out some words for you. Are you a conservative? Are you a liberal? Are you a progressive? Are you a socialist? Are you a Marxist? Are you a racist? Are you a bigot? Are you overly prejudiced? Now, some of those words are descriptive and play into everyday life, but some of those words cut deep, and they cut deep to divide. And so when we look at the essence of dialogue and hijacking a message, those messages get hijacked by some of those words that I just uttered. And it is up to us to decide, how do we proclaim this message? And not only how do we proclaim it, but how will it be received by those who hear it? And so as we navigate through today's society, where we we kind of have this feeling of superiority, this complex of just being able to do whatever floats into your brain or wants to be spewed from out of your mouth. Whether the rhetoric be hateful, demeaning, be damning, it does not matter. As long as we're able to freely express what we want to say without remembering our words have consequences. So it doesn't matter how much you say or you want to show an action. These are the times where your words deceive you and your words really show you. Just like the great Maya Angelou, when people show you who they are, believe them. So this is the microcosm of community. This is the interpersonal relationships that we wish to nurture. But at the same time, this is inherently a piece of the problem, a problem that our greater society is trying and failing to succeed, is how do we use our words? This is something that we often say, use your words. But it's hard to use your words when you're really not sure about what you want to say. Or you may want to say it and you can't figure out the best way to say it. All of these things become very hurtful and painful. And sometimes they become counterproductive. The interpersonal relationships of people are based on basically around social. We are social creatures. But when there's ever a message that needs to be said, we speak to the masses. Now, we know that in any good election, 50% of the people are going to like you, 50% of them are going to dislike you. And that's why with most voting, it's always 49-51, 47-53. It's usually close to that 50-50 split. But we have to determine this is more than just a 50-50 split. It's like engaging in a relationship. Most people would say relationships are 50-50. I say no, that's why the relationship fails. The relationship is 100%, because if I'm not giving my all, then I'm being dishonest and disloyal. The same thing with our communication, our words, and our sharing. If we're not being 100% with this person, sharing our outlook respectfully listening and hearing and trying to give that not just a physical sound response, but a heartfelt, I feel where you're coming from type of stance. Even though I may not walk in your shoes, I can empathize with your words and your situation. That message, my friends, is what's been hijacked. No longer do we have that courteous communication, that courteous, look out to and look in and look around. We operate in this zero-sum game where it's all or nothing. Either I have it all or I have nothing at all. This is the dangerous part of what we do. And so when we message, we're taking the message of communication, of oneness, of openness, of inclusion. That doesn't have a label. That doesn't make someone a liberal or a progressive or a conservative or a socialist or a Marxist or a communist. It makes you human. It makes you human in understanding the essence of our humanity. The essence of our humanity is not how often we stand up and trumpet and pat each other on the back. The essence of our humanity is knowing that sometimes we fail, sometimes we make mistakes, but it's not how many times we fall, but it's how many times we will stand up. And so we have seen the worst of mixed messaging and poor messaging and hijacked messaging. Now let's figure out, how do we turn ourselves around into doing and using these words for good? I think when we begin to enunciate and we begin to, proliferate, and we begin to be so pragmatic with our vernacular, see all those big words, it breaks it down very simple. Choose your words wisely. Use your words carefully. And always remember, even though you are speaking, there's a receiver on the end of those words. And so we must always be ever, ever vigilant, ever protective, ever respectful of that person who is the hearer of these words. So this is what we really look at when we pretend and we portend that we desire to see change, that we desire that revolution, that we desire that next step of evolutionary change when it comes to dialogue and relationships. It all gets back to that. And so as we focus our eyes on that, let us turn our gaze and focus our gaze not on what we are as individuals, but how do we use that gift and talent of dialogue to move our message across, to ensure that it doesn't get hijacked and weaponized and demonized, but to use those words carefully and cautiously, with compassion and concern. When we compound all of those factors together, I don't believe there's a message that could go wrong. Not when we come to dealing with each other as humans, not political junkies, not TV hacks, not radio hacks, not writing hacks, not wannabe journalists, not wannabe anything. Just take me on face value as a human. And we'll see how that message comes along. Thank you for watching the video. Please hit the subscribe button so that you can receive notification when new videos are dropped. Thank you so much for your support, and look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.